And Dave Sussman back in the chair here with you at Realside Radio across the Fruited Plain, 52 stations across Salem Radio Network and GCN. And we're talking impeachment and really just this sham that we're seeing that has just been hoisted upon the American people. And no better person I know than to talk about this and basically anything else, especially if you're interested in talking about coffee, than John Gabriel, editor-in-chief over at Ricochet.com. John, thanks for joining us.
You bet. Thank you for saving me from the Democratic debate. I do not recommend anybody watch it. They're now competing who's going to tax Americans more. So it's some bold new ideas going on there tonight.
Bold new ideas. Let's tax everybody. What is the appeal, do you think? I want to talk with impeachment with you in just a minute, but what is it that you think is the appeal right now? If you're not making any money and you're not paying taxes, I get it. Right? I want mine. But most people earn a living. They they're working to, save their shekels and, put the kids through school. What's the appeal, do you think? And why do they still have such a relatively large following when we're talking about 40 to 50% of the country?
I think a lot of it is just the promise that someone else can fix your life for you. That's what the Democrats play to a lot when we all know, that's why we're conservatives, that government can't fix humanity. They're not really equipped to fix much of anything, to be honest. And also, too, just this general form of envy and grievance. That's all they push is just a question was asked at the start about how would you bring the country together, and then they just started picking different groups to bash who aren't doing their part, as they say.
Yeah.
So, just grievance and envy. It's must be a miserable way to live.
Yeah, I would think so. All right, want your perspective on things. About what time is it here? 6, let's say 8 hours ago, even Ken Starr said Trump's goose was cooked. Sondland came out, and if you watch the media and only listen to the media, the perception was that Sondland threw Trump under the bridge, that he established that there was a quid pro quo, until they started asking him, what do you mean by a quid pro quo? And they turned it around and realized, oh, well, I meant, that they were going to make an announcement that they were going to do an investigation, but there was no actual quid pro quo. Talk to me about what you're seeing right now that's happening.
Yeah, it's just this fire hose of nonsense that doesn't stop. So, yeah, if I'm on Twitter, and if you watch that during the day, every day you have major reporters about every 15 minutes saying, this is a bombshell.
Yeah.
And then a couple of days later, nobody remembers it. Well, we've been seeing this for 3.5 years now. And with this impeachment hearing, it's like they're trying so hard to get this going, and the polling is turning Trump's way. The latest polling has more people approve of him than before this impeachment stuff started. The mood, people wanting impeachment, that's going down in the polls. So it has been a fiasco for the House. Adam Schiff has just been leading his Democratic colleagues into a box canyon where they're stuck. And the Senate's not going to vote to convict. Mitch McConnell, who's the master of procedure, is going to do all kinds of interesting things, I'm sure, if they do vote to impeach and it moves to the Senate, keeping senators trying to run for president, keeping them away from Iowa and New Hampshire, and keeping them in D.C. where they can't campaign, and maybe calling some interesting witnesses, Hunter Biden, even Joe Biden. So what the Democrats think they're doing with this is just beyond me. And yeah, like Sondland said, he basically gave everybody something to hang their hat on. And when he was out and out asked, was there a quid pro quo? Did Trump ask you for this? He said no. So I don't know what they think they got out of these hearings. Nothing seems to be happening. And frankly, the American people just aren't paying attention to it.
Let me ask you this, because I'm deeply concerned. I do television every day now, and we were live, doing news through all of this today, and there were so many different aspects to all of this. You see somebody like Representative Stefanik, who comes out from New York. She's incredible, and you're over the target when you're taking flack. Apparently, the Democrats have raised $1 million for her opponent for 2020. She comes out and she basically just lays it all out there. There was no quid pro quo. Sondland didn't find any quid pro quo. But I am concerned, John, because the media seem to be reporting this in their own little bubble vacuum, and this is what so many people are hearing. And if they don't hear you, if they don't go on your Twitter feed, John, if they don't listen to folks like us, you're really getting a very biased version of what's taking place.
Yeah, you completely are, but I really think something that I said right after, before Trump was inaugurated, so it was like December, between the election and the inauguration, you could already see all this impeachment talk bubbling up. Oh, hold on a second. My dog is very excited. Excuse me.
Are the Democrats offering free dog biscuits?
Yeah. Yeah, I think some Democrats stepped onto my property, and my beagle Calvin is on the case. But something that I was saying, back before the presidency even started is the Democrats, if they're smart at all, and of course they didn't take this advice, is stop blowing up everything into some impeachment level crisis, because you're going to wear out your audience, who are the voters. And I think most of the people in the country, yes, you have the partisans against Trump, you have the partisans for Trump, but most of the people are just trying to get on with their day. They're not on Twitter. They're not watching the news channels. They're watching HGTV or Netflix, and they're just tuning all this stuff out. I'm sure, I had to do some grocery shopping today. If I pulled aside 10 people in the store, 9 of them wouldn't know these hearings were even going on. It's just nobody's talking about it out here in the wilds of flyover country.
Yeah.
And, if you're in this political bubble, this stuff matters a lot. But, there's no message. There's no elevator pitch for, okay, here's why we have to impeach Trump, other than orange man bad. And that's what they've been saying for 3.5 years.
In our last minute here before the break, because I want to talk to you about the next steps after this goes through, because I think we both agree that they're going to have the votes for impeachment in the House. But you get that guy in the store, and you're trying to decide between imitation and real crab in the refrigerator section, and you ask somebody, a lot of people will just say, "Listen, I don't really understand it all, but obviously he did something wrong," right? Because the media is reporting that. Is that concerning?
I think it is concerning, but the drumbeat has just been so unrelenting, nonstop. Going back to the GOP primaries, that he's a disaster, he can't win, everything he does is crooked and wrong. I think a lot of people are just tuning out, especially since we're less than a year till an election. Mm-hmm. I think people want to make the decision whether or not Trump should stay in office, not have basically Adam Schiff who, I'm sorry, looks like a crazy person. Even if you're a Democrat, he just looks like a crazy person up there. He's partisan. You know that they were trying to push this Mueller report for 2.5 years, and now all of a sudden, oh, wait, it's not Russia who he's colluding with. It's their mortal enemies, Ukraine. Yeah, that's the ticket. And I just don't see how that sells to the average voter who's looking and saying, wow, I've gotten a raise, I got my health care, what do I want to change horses for?
We got John, editor-in-chief over at Ricochet.com. We're going to bring it back through the break here, folks. We're going to talk about what's going to be happening once this moves over to the Senate, and maybe we've got, when I go to Phoenix, my favorite person to have coffee with, John Gabriel over at Ricochet.com. He is the editor-in-chief, and everybody needs to check out Ricochet.com. And also, you can find John with his lively feed. He's one of the best people to follow on Twitter, at XJohn, EXJON. John, so I think you and I would both agree that this thing was already wrapped up before it started. The Democrats have the votes. Let's assume they've already written the articles of impeachment. This is going to go through. There's going to be a vote, and then it's going to get handed over to Mitch McConnell in the Senate. Do the Democrats realize, especially Klobuchar and Harris and Booker and Bernie and Warren and everybody else that's a senator, that they can no longer campaign while the impeachment trial is happening?
I think they're trying to pretend that won't happen, but Mitch McConnell's going to make him pay because that's what he's good at. When he's not confirming judges, he's making Democrats squirm. He understands how the procedure works. The Republicans get to drive this thing, and they can call whoever the heck they want to the stand. Heck, they could even call these quote-unquote presidential candidates. Some of them don't really have a chance, so it's kind of hard to think of them as front runners. But just hold their feet to the fire. It's like, you guys want an impeachment. Let's see how we can do, and see which witnesses we can do. They could call the whistleblower to testify. And, they could even call Adam Schiff to explain himself on all this leaking that he's done, the misstatements that he's made, all the crazy conspiracy mongering he's done on cable news. So they can make it really painful for Democrats. And, Nancy Pelosi tried to resist impeachment for a long time because she understands this doesn't play well in those districts that Trump won. And now I think she just wants to get it over as quickly as possible. But, the Republicans can make this painful for them.
What do you think happened with Nancy Pelosi? Because she was trying to thread the needle with this. She and Adam Schiff himself, not more than a few months ago, said that impeachment is serious and we will not move forward unless it's a bipartisan affair. Yeah, it ended up being a bipartisan affair. 2 Democrats came over with 100% of the Republicans to vote for this thing. So let's say those numbers remain the same for impeachment. And I think you're going to lose a few Democrats, but there's still enough for them to get the impeachment articles of impeachment voted for. But what do you think happened? I mean, I'm going to ask you to put on your professor hat here. What happened behind the scenes with Nancy Pelosi to allow this thing to move forward? Because I think by all measures, you and I would agree, she's a tactile politician. You don't become Speaker of the House twice in a lifetime. So why such a mistake?
I think part of it is a lot of the money people in the party, especially the small donors, really want impeachment. They think this is going to solve all their problems. Also, she was just being caged in by the woke brigade, kind of the AOC types, which are really taking over a lot of the enthusiasm for the party. And I think she just couldn't hold them off anymore. She is a little confused by these younger members because they'll get all this media love and attention that Pelosi was used to getting for herself. And so I think just eventually she just finally caved to them. And just like Schiff, she's hoping just that they can knock this out quick and then let it go behind them. It's still almost a year till the election, a little less than that. And she's like, oh, maybe they'll forget. But I think they've so poisoned the well with the Mueller report, how that was a disaster. And also, too, just remember the Kavanaugh hearings. And that made any Republican look askance at any initiative that the Democrats are pushing because they were just so no holds barred and so beyond the pale. They talk about how Trump violates norms. Well, that was, basically nothing but a norms violation, what they put Kavanaugh through and put the country through. So I think they really lost a lot of Republicans and a couple of those Democrats out there. I think of like Manchin, Kirsten Sinema from Arizona. It's going to be tough to win those people over to push for impeachment.
Yeah, and I think Sinema might actually offset a Romney if he goes the other way. So it would be interesting to see. We were talking about her last time I spoke with you. I'm very impressed with Sinema. I think she's, I wish she would caucus with the Republicans. She's kind of a Democrat in name only at this point. But let's go to the next step here. We're expecting by December the 11th, you got Huber, you've got Durham. The AG report is going to be coming out regarding what happened with the FISA memo. We all know what took place, that the DNC and Hillary Clinton's campaign sponsored the Steele dossier. They paid for it, where they got bad information from Russian oligarchs about Donald Trump. They were spying on Donald Trump. They used that information to get a FISA court to agree to do investigation. They went to the newspapers, and Yahoo News and BuzzFeed gladly reported this thing. That substantiated even further. But we all know what happened, that it was all based upon a fraud. Does this come out, and my question for you is that, does that change the needle anyway towards support for President Trump? And B, John, do the media report it, or have the Democrats already poisoned the well with this whole idea that everything is a conspiracy?
Yeah, the media will definitely try to spin it in their favor, but it's going to be really hard to suppress because it's a story that the Democrat-leaning media has totally fallen down on. In the past, say 20 years ago, if there was a case where you had Republicans said this, Democrats said this, they would at least report both sides. Even if they poo-pooed the conservative side, they would at least report it. This, they're just pretending like it completely doesn't exist, which I think a lot of the American people are going to see through and just say, wow, it really is a swamp there. And that's the thing. Trump does not have to be 100% innocent and, totally free of any kind of concerns in the voter's eye, but when you look at the Democrats and say, wow, well, they're at least as corrupt as he is, that, that takes the sting off, since the media has just been saying Trump is corrupt all the time. If we show more evidence that the Democrats are actually the real corruption going on, I think Trump can win some people over, despite the media being against him nonstop and lying, treating him like this totally corrupt guy just on the edge of impeachment, which they've been reporting for about 3.5 years.
Yeah, and our last couple of minutes, John. Listen, I hate the sweet meteor of death, but I would be expecting that if this takes place in the next 11 months. What happens if Ruth Bader Ginsburg retires or passes in the next year?
I think the sweet meteor of death would avoid the planet, because he's like, there's no more work I can do down there. If RBG is for some reason off the court, and it would be likely that Trump would nominate Amy Coney Barrett, oh my gosh, it would make Kavanaugh look like nothing, like a walk in the park. And I think even when Kavanaugh was nominated and they were going through that, you could see that, because they just went absolutely berserk. And if they lose someone they consider an icon of feminism, an icon of progressivism, and she is replaced with a conservative jurist who's a female, pretty darn young too, so she would be on the court a long time. Oh, the smears they're going to concoct are going to be absolutely out of this world.
What will happen when people say, well, Mitch McConnell didn't allow Merrick Garland to come in because he was replacing a conservative judge, where Ruth Bader Ginsburg is obviously a liberal judge?
I think no one will care. Partisans will care, of course. Democrats will say, hey, why are you doing this? And Cocaine Mitch will say, because I can. We have the Senate. So I could, under Obama, I could monkey up Merrick Garland since I was controlling under the last days of Obama, and we control the Senate now, and I'm going to use it. He certainly hasn't blanched from that in changing courts around the country.
Yeah, well, we can go back to the Harry Reid, who started with the nuclear option on appointments. And hey, listen, Mitch McConnell just did what he was going to do anyway, and he moved it over to the Supreme Court. So it's going to be really interesting to see. It's going to be a fascinating year. And I got to tell you, you and I laugh about it. You know, the rock's been spinning for 4 billion years, and we get to be alive when President Donald Trump is in office. So this is certainly a really interesting time. Tell us real quickly where folks can find you, and a little bit about Ricochet in our last half a minute.
Oh, yeah. I'm the editor-in-chief of Ricochet.com. Check out the site. A lot of great content there. We always have members writing all the time. I write there. And also have about 50 different podcasts. So anything you might be interested in, we've got you covered there.
Including Whiskey Politics. Thank you very much.
Yeah, exactly.
I appreciate everything that you do, John. Greatly appreciate you taking the time. And get back to watching the debate. I'm sure your dog is just salivating at all the free milk bones he's going to be getting.
Can't wait.
So greatly appreciate you taking the time, John. And folks, everybody check him out at XJohn. Twitter is the place you want to be to follow John Gabriel. And folks, we'll be back here after the break. Dave Sussman here at Real Side Radio. Don't go away. We've got a lot more coming up in hour number 1.